Hello, thank you for joining us. I am Timothy Lawson, Marine Corps veteran and host of VA's first official podcast, Born the Battle. Today we're kicking off Mental Health Month with Make the Connection. I'm here with Dr. Wendy Tenhula and Mr. Moses Maddox. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about mental health, seeking support, seeking treatment, and the benefits that can have, and how family members can also get involved in their loved one's personal health. So can you two tell us a little bit about yourselves and your role in the veteran space?
Sure, thanks Tim. Great to be here with you today. I'm Wendy Tenhula and I'm the Director of Innovation and Collaboration for VA's Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. And in that role, I have the privilege of working on Make the Connection, which is VA's national outreach campaign for mental health, as well as overseeing and working with several national programs within the VA.
Thanks for having me. My name is Moses Maddox. I'm a Veterans Retention Counselor at Cal State University San Marcos. My main focus is career placement for veterans, but we do it through a really unique way, through a holistic approach that we call whole person wellness, and we focus on not only career advancement, but making sure that your physical health is okay, your mental health is okay, financially you're okay, family you're okay, spiritually you're okay.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here. We're going to spend the better part of the next hour discussing mental health. Moses, we're going to start with you, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about your service in the Marine Corps, and we'll start there. Tell us about your time in the Marine Corps.
I joined the Marine Corps. I wish I could say it was for patriotism or duty. I just wanted to get out of Texas, to be honest. And
what part of Texas?
Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. And I grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I saw on the map that I see the globe, and it's just one little speck on this big thing. And I wanted to, get out of Texas, explore the world, and the Marine Corps is the way. And I joined in '99, got out in 2006. I was in financial management for the first part of my career, and I really vividly remember the Marine Corps before 9/11, and it was essentially having an office job. You show up at 07:30, you leave at 16:30, you do PT a couple times a week, you meet with your buddies after work. The Marine Corps resembled more an episode of Office than Black Hawk Down or whatever, but I also remember how the Marine Corps changed after 9/11. And I ended up deploying twice to Iraq, once with mortuary affairs in 2004 and once with civil affairs in 2006.
Okay. What prompted your transition out of the military then?
A variety of things, but the biggest one was I had a 4-year-old son at the time, and he's 16 now. And I just really was tired of missing him. It was really wearing on me, and I wasn't enjoying the Marine Corps anymore. And I was tired of missing my son, and I was faced with this decision where I could be really well off, because the Marine Corps does pay well once you get to a certain level, and take care of my family through that way, or take the risk of being broke and being a good father, being the type of father that I wanted to be, and I wanted to be there. And I just knew that I had this awesome little boy, and I had no clue who he was, and I just really wanted to figure this out and be a dad.
So, what experiences were you having after your transition that prompted you to seek support? So what were you experiencing before you sought support?
I did everything that one shouldn't do. I alienated my family. I was a horrible significant other, so the dissolution of romantic relationships, I wasn't being there for my son. And in fact, I got out to be a father to my son. I realized one day that it had been a couple months since I've even seen him. I wasn't making the time. I got out to be better professionally, and I was getting fired from every job that I had because I was so confrontational and so irritable and so angry. And I was engaging in risky behavior, trying to recoup that adrenaline that I had in the military, and I was just frankly lost. Essentially, I dive-bombed all my relationships, dive-bombed myself professionally, dive-bombed myself financially. And one day I woke up and I had this moment of clarity. It was like day 4 of me not getting off the couch, and I was just in this really bad spot. And I had this come to Jesus moment that I realized that, yeah, I'm the root of all of this. I'm causing this. And I had 2 thoughts. And the first thought was the Marine Corps the Marine Corps was it. That's as good as I'll ever be. And everything else is just a downfall from that. And maybe my time here is done. Suicide was a thought, And then after that, it's like, maybe I probably should go talk to somebody. My family members had brought it up before, and I ignored them. But I didn't have anyone around me, so I was like, all right, cool. I'll go try that.
So you did have people in your life that were alerting you that you were behaving poorly and that you needed to seek support.
Right, and my ego was so big. You know, I was gassed up. You know, I'm Corporal Maddox. I went to war twice. Like I fight in martial arts. I do boxing, and you know, I was so full of machismo that them saying that something was wrong was almost an insult. You know, I took them more as being a hater and talking down to me than understanding they were coming from a place of love and concern. And that was part of it. It was just pushing back whenever they said, hey, maybe you should go get checked out. Yeah. And only when they were all gone, and rightfully so, I don't blame them, like that happens. Once I realized they were all gone, then I was like, all right, maybe I should have listened, or maybe I should start listening.
You mentioned that you experienced suicidal behavior. Did you ever attempt?
No.
Okay.
No.
And what do you think the barrier was between thinking and attempting? What kept you from going down that path?
Just didn't know what or where or how. You know, like it was just a thought, like maybe I shouldn't be here, but I never really thought like, oh, I should go do this. It was just like,
so it was the philosophy behind it, not so much the actual want to remove yourself.
Right. It really was like, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
And it was also a scary thought because, you know, you have those thoughts of, you know, a little boy growing up without his father, and you know, there was a lot of fear that like maybe there's something better, like I don't know what, but it can't be this.
Yeah. How old is your son now?
16.
16. How aware is he now of what you were experiencing then?
Very.
Okay.
I am a big proponent of positive mental health, you know, taking it seriously, that it's not a crazy sentence, that saying that if you need help or if you're feeling down, that's not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of strength, and that it's really, really important to talk about it. I grew up, you know, the most access that we had with mental health was like Robin Williams on Good Will Hunting, you know, the climatic scene with
not your fault.
Right, it's not your fault, and you start crying, or how mental health was almost a punchline, right? You need to go, like, what was it, the Santa Claus, where the bad guy was the psychologist who thought that, and like, so mental health was just not treated very fairly growing up as a thing. It was a punchline. It was a sign of weakness. And then on top of that, the narrative during those days, early 2000s, was that PTSD was a crazy sentence. We're afraid to have PTSD, and it was almost a threat. So when you're overseas, you had to fill out mental health forms, and you're told that if you say yes to anything, they're going to keep you behind.
Does he ever reflect on those times and tell you about what he was experiencing while you were going through that?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
We encourage it. That doesn't really come up much. You know, and part of the reason why I was doing this is to, you know, I have this platform to not only say that veterans do not have the market cornered when it comes to trauma. Veterans do not have the market cornered when it comes to PTSD. Mental health is a very human thing. Like, everyone has issues, and it's okay for everyone to talk about it. And really seek to change the conversation that it isn't a crazy sentence. It can get better. It will get better as long as you take those steps.
Yeah. So Wendy, with everything that we've been talking to Moses about, and we've learned about his experience in the military, transitioning, seeking support, what behaviors do you recognize in his story there that you think are indicators that other people should be aware of when it comes to a mental health condition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and great examples, Moses, of the kinds of things that a lot of people experience. Oftentimes it's friends or family members who notice first that something's not quite right and might try to say something, and those conversations might not go well. And so they might be hesitant to bring it up again. And those can be really hard conversations to have, as you experienced and as your family experienced. And what I would say, oftentimes what happens too is people notice a change. And so that's what I would say people should watch for, is in themselves or in someone else. So a family member might notice that their loved one is withdrawing from friends or family, or is more irritable, or is not doing something that they feel passionate about or have in the past felt passionate about, and so have sort of removed themselves from things that they would normally do. And the person themselves who's experiencing a difficulty might experience some of the things that Moses described, sort of not getting off the couch, having trouble with relationships, having trouble with their job, having trouble kind of keeping up with the things that they normally would maintain. Irritability, you described. Also, people may have flashbacks, people may have trouble concentrating. We hear a lot about trouble sleeping, which then, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, can lead to other difficulties during the day, trouble concentrating, irritability, some of the things that I've already talked about. And also using drugs and alcohol, doing other risky behaviors, things like that. Again, watching for a change in someone's behavior is a clue that there might be something going on, that you might want to start a conversation with someone in your life if you're concerned about them. And you might want to ask them about how they're doing. Let them know that you're concerned. Let them know that there is help available if they are having difficulties. And that can be one of the hardest things, is taking that step towards not just realizing there's something wrong here, but understanding that there's something that can be done about it, and that there are treatments available that are effective. And I think we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah. So I'll stop there. But I think a lot of the things you described are very common things that people notice, and sort of clues that asking for help might be a good idea, and that there is, and the most important thing is for people to realize that there is support available, and that there are effective treatments available if you realize that something's going on.
So, and maybe your answer to this question is exactly everything you just said, but I'm going to ask it in case there's more to add. What if I'm just sad? Right, like, and what if I believe what I'm experiencing is just normal sadness? Right. Should I still be concerned about the way that I feel, or is there a different way of approaching that? I don't know if
Right.
I don't know if there's something to add there, but
yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's one of the things that makes it really hard for people. One of the reasons why people are hesitant to reach out for mental health support is that they don't realize that what they're experiencing is something that there might be treatment available for. So if you're feeling sad, everyone has days when they feel sad. Everyone has that emotion of sadness. The question is it bad enough, or where's the line between sort of feeling sad a little bit and something that's a treatable mental health condition. And what I would say, the important thing to watch for is changes. If it's a change, that if you're feeling sad more of the time than you have before, or if it's affecting other things in your life. So if it's keeping you from getting up off the couch, or if it's keeping you from going to work or being as effective at work, or making you feel more irritable with your family members, and if there's so things to watch for are if it's a change, if things are getting worse, and if it's affecting how you're living your life and the things that you're able to do in your life. Those are two things to watch for. But I think, again, just going back to the idea that that's one of the things that makes the encouraging people to seek mental health care difficult, is because there's not a clear physical injury, right? If you sprain your ankle, or you have some sort of, you have a fever for a few days, you know that you should go to the doctor. You have a physical injury or a physical illness that is a clear change from how things were before. With mental health conditions, it's not always that clear. And people may also not realize, and often another reason that people are often hesitant to seek care is they just don't realize that what they're experiencing is something that's treatable, or is something that talking to a doctor, or going and seeing a doctor or a counselor or a therapist about, that can make a difference. They just may feel like there's nothing that can be done.
So to that example of, you have a physical injury, it needs to be taken care of. I think maybe then the question is how it relates to mental health is, if I have a sprained ankle and I go to a doctor, the doctor's gonna be like, you don't need to come in for this. Like if you have a sprained ankle, just stay off of it until it heals. By or if you talk to a doctor friend, right, and you're like, if you come in, I'm just gonna tell you, the same thing that you get off of it. So then, if you're experiencing a mental health issue, you know, if you're not someone who's used to addressing your mental health, then how low should the bar be to be that? And maybe maybe a change in behavior is is one of those indicators. But what else should be that indicator of like, okay, no, this isn't just get some rest type stuff. I need to go in and get treatment.
Right. That's a great question and a really hard thing to figure out. A couple of thoughts about that. One is the first thing you can do is try to learn more. So you yourself can try to, like, is this normal? You know, is this how I should be feeling? There are, and we talked at the beginning about Make the Connection. On the maketheconnection.net website, there's a ton of information about different mental health conditions, different types of treatments that are available, and where you can find help if you do decide that you want to take that step to ask for help. I think the point there is to try to learn more about what might be going on, whether that's through Make the Connection, whether it's through reading, whether it's through talking to a friend or family member. That's another thing you can do is just bring it up. Like, have you noticed? Do you think this is a problem? Ask your doctor. There are, you know, and a mental health professional or a healthcare professional can do an assessment. And I would much rather have people ask, even if they're not sure, and have the doctor say, no, I think you're good. You know, just try, you know, let me know if things get worse. I would much rather have someone do that than have things get worse and worse and worse and have them not ask the question. So I think, you know, both learning more, asking others who know you and care about you, and checking in with a doctor or a counselor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mo, as you said, I can address your Mo now for the rest of the day. Tell me about the support or treatment that you received, and we'll start with the formal treatment that you received at VA. What was that experience like?
For me, it was quick. Once I made the decision to, like, maybe I need to talk to somebody, I drove straight to the VA in Oceanside, and there was an old Vietnam veteran there, and I was like, hey, I need some help, man. And he was like, cool, let's get you some help. And it was that easy. And, you know, he was an old Vietnam vet, and he was talking about his stories. And he was the first one to say, we all go through it. And that was like, wait, what? Like, what? You know, that was the first time someone admitted to me that they came back and something was wrong. That was the first part. It was just really quick service by the VA. I was paired with the counselor, and I had an appointment with my counselor within a couple days of saying that I needed help. And the counselor, our first assessment was her telling me how it was going to go. And she was brutally honest, like, hey, like, we're going to take this head on. Like, you're diagnosed with PTSD. We're going to get you checked out for some TBI. We're going to go through the entire thing, but you have to be patient. There's going to be days where it's going to be harder than some. There's going to be days where you're going to leave here feeling worse than the others. There's going to be days where you don't feel like showing up, but you gotta. Like, there is recovery, but you have to be patient with the process, and it's all a process. And she was absolutely right. Some days where I didn't, you know, I think we've all been there where we wanted to go to the gym, and, you know, or you want to commit to the gym, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you want to get there at 5. You're like, I just want to sleep, and you skip the gym, right? And as you go through the treatment, it is really easy to skip treatment. It's easy to come up with an excuse, but it's in those moments where you don't feel like going that you should go, because that's where the improvement is, and that's where things started happening. And it took several months for I started to see the incremental changes. It did take a while, and there was days where I just really, really hated being there. But, you know, in retrospect, I'm glad I did.
And you're right. It's so like going to a gym and taking care of your physical health. Mental health is a practice. It's routine. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And you know, when you experience depression or an emotional or health crisis, you recognize it more quickly. Sort of, you know, and in the same way that if you don't go to the gym, your body begins to atrophy. Your mind does the same thing when it comes to mental health, right? The more, if you stop practicing it, it can start to sort of wither in that way and become weaker. What was your support like at home after you started seeking treatment? You mentioned that your family alerted you, hey, we think you need to get some help. You finally got some help. What was the response like at home?
It took a while for them to start trusting again. You know, as Dr. Tenhula stated, it's really hard to have those conversations, and it's really easy to respond negatively to those conversations. At some point, people are like, all right, you're on your own. And rightfully so. And like, you don't blame them. They're not the mental health practitioners. They're just concerned citizens who want you to be better. But at some point, you can only be so negative before it's starting to affect them. So it took a while to build the trust. And there are some relationships that, were completely dissolved. And just letting those relationships go, understanding that I destroyed that, it's over, okay. But I learned how to be more patient. I learned how to say I'm sorry without making excuses. I learned how to be present and I'm riding my own wave of getting better. They're going through their own thing and being patient with their own process and understanding they have to go about it their own way, just like I need to go about it my own way. And learning this wonderful word called empathy and meeting them where they're at and really just going with that flow and riding that wave. And it did take a couple months for them to start trusting and believing it, but we all recovered together in a way to where they trusted me. I was fully immersed with them, and it got better, but it was a slow trickle. It's not that Goodwill Hunting moment where you say it's not your fault and you start crying. It's one day you realize that like things are pretty good. Yeah. But the other big piece of the treatment was understanding that there's no curing PTSD. It's not like they could wave a wand and you're cured. I was taught how to recognize the symptoms, like PTSD, anger management issues. Like I still have like the temper. I just recognize the symptoms way earlier and I'm able to address it in a more positive way. And it doesn't mean that every day is going to be sunny. It doesn't mean that you're going to wake up happy every single day. You go through the ebbs and flows of life, and some days are going to be harder than others to get up. But the most important part is learning that on those days where you don't feel like yourself and you don't feel super, sunshiny and bright, that it's still important to get up. And you understand that's just a wave. Ride this wave, it'll get better. And it took a long time. It took years to really, really get good at that. But it was a daily struggle to get there. And, even now, 10 years later, there's days, you revert back. But the more important part is like, hey, I'm sorry. Or talking to yourself, not letting that negative self-talk like, oh, you're going back to loser mode again, or you suck, or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I wasn't my best self today, but I'll come back tomorrow better and ready to crush it. Yeah. And like I said, it took a while and took a lot of treatments, and it took a lot of not only just a formal treatment, but peer support and learning how to trust my colleagues and my comrades and my brothers and sisters and my family to be open and vulnerable. And me recovering was definitely a group effort.
Yeah, it's a team sport sometimes.
Exactly.
In that, I think we often look at it as person who is suffering, and then everybody has this equal support role. That's not true, right? You have person that is suffering, and then you have this person who supports in their way, and this person that supports in their way. You have the person that you go to when you're like in an immediate crisis, and then you have the person you go to when you want to have that hour-long philosophical talk about life, right? And so everybody supports in their own way. You mentioned that you sort of talk down to yourself, and one thing that I've learned in life that I'm still not great at, but I try to get better at is I try not to talk to myself in ways that I would not let other people talk to me, right? And so I try not to insult myself. And you're talking about routines and getting into a crisis or getting into a like depression or emotional ebb, if you will. We know how to recognize it, and we know how to like treat it. And I've realized that the one thing that I've struggled with the most is reminding myself what it was like to get out of it, right? Reminding myself that there is an other side. And sometimes when you're in a situation, like when you're in an emotional crisis where your feelings are almost dependent on an event, right? So if you're anxious about something or you think something might be going wrong with a relationship, you need that to be okay before you can get past it emotionally. And in those situations, I have learned that I have a hard time convincing myself that there will be a brighter side on the other side of this. And, my mother would always tell me this too shall pass. And she hasn't been wrong yet. So I suppose mother knows best. So can you speak to that on recognizing that you're in that space and trying to look past it, even though you're uncertain what lies beyond that?
For me, I think we have the same routine. Like for instance, this morning I woke up and wanted to run away to Patagonia to sell tacos instead of appearing here, right? Like every time I've done media or spoken in front of a crowd, or even there's times where I'll work with a student one-on-one and just second guess myself, like, was that the best thing I could have said right then and there? Like, self-doubt is to be human, it seems, right? So that negative self-talk happens in all walks of life, not just, oh, I'm depressed and I don't want to get out of bed, but like, man, is someone going to, completely roast me in the comment section of this thing once it goes live, right? What are they saying right now, right? And it is that where I think about that, but also I think about where I'm at right now and where I used to be, and I vividly remember what it was like to be that low, and I vividly remember what it was like to just to be in that space. And I don't know what's next from here, and I don't know what's next tomorrow, but I do remember yesterday, and I do remember 10 years ago, and I'll do everything I can in a positive way, not out of fear, but out of just, I really enjoy my life. And not all of it's great, but not all of it's there are struggles in life, but I do remember vividly what it was like not to have that. And yeah, it's perspective. It's understanding that it's a day-to-day thing, and you don't want to get too comfortable. You want to enjoy yourself, you want to be present, but you don't want to be comfortable thinking like, yeah, I'm okay. Because in those moments, that's when like it'll just rail you, and you're in that spot, and you're, how did this happen? What happened? And being present in your own life, being self-aware, having those positive conversations with yourself, and knowing that it's a process, it has been super helpful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to jump in and comment on something that both of you have described, a really powerful thing where the first thing is recognizing it. So recognizing when you're getting back into a negative self-talk sort of mode, or recognizing if you're having a day that isn't your best day, just by recognizing it, what you guys have both described is now that you can recognize it, you can do things to change the way you're thinking, and then that in turn changes how you're feeling, and that gets you closer to being able to see how things were when they were better again, and really being able to focus on, so there's that, the sort of recognizing it, and then that's what allows you to be able to change it, that negative self-talk. And then the other thing that I wanted to comment on is both of you described being able to sort of pick out something positive to build on. So Moses talked about how you don't want to go back to that place 10 years ago, and how much, even if you're having a bad day today, how compared to 10 years ago, at your lowest point, this is still so much better. And you're the one that made it that way. And through seeking treatment and through the things that you did as part of that treatment, you can then keep yourself from going back there. And so that sort of idea of taking something positive, finding the positive, finding the strength that you have, and building on that. And you talked about it in treatment being incremental, little bits at a time, that it took patience and it took time to do, but that what you did was gradually sort of build back up to a place that you felt much more comfortable. So that sort of building in little bits and pieces, but building on finding the positive and building on it.
One of my favorite lyrics from a song is from an artist named Joe Budden, and he has a line that says, "I'm not here because I fell down, I'm here because I got up." And I've always taken that to be that I may fall into a depression here, but this is a better situation I'm in now than it was a long time ago, because I have fought through this and I've gotten to a better place. So even though this feels like a lull, it really is a much better place than I've been before. And if that's not what he meant, whatever, that's what I took from it. So, Wendy, let's talk about treatment.
Okay.
And seeking treatment, because we know that it's intimidating for anybody, veteran or not. And mental, physical, doesn't matter. Getting treatment's always intimidating. Walking into a hospital or a doctor's office is intimidating no matter what it is, right? And then having to be vulnerable with a mental health condition is even more intimidating. Let's start with veterans. What what should they know about getting treatment for a mental health condition? Like, what is that experience initially like?
Right. A couple of things that I would want someone to know who's having difficulties, who's struggling, and thinking about maybe they ought to reach out for some support or reach out for some mental health treatment. One is to know that there are effective treatments available. For every mental health condition, there are effective treatments available. It may not be the minute you walk in it likely will not be the minute you walk in the doctor's office that treatment, that you figure it out right away and takes effect right away. Moses, you talked about, it being sort of a process. But there are effective treatments available. There are different types of treatments available. There are medications that help with some types of problems. There's counseling. Sometimes it's the combination of both that work best for an individual person. And it really is a matter of working with your doctor or with your counselor to determine what's the most effective thing for you, what's going to be most helpful for you, what's going to make the most difference for you. And if something doesn't work right away, or the first thing you try doesn't work right away, to stick with it and to talk with your doctor and really think about the process as just that, as a process where you're a partner in that with your doctor, with your counselor, and you're both working together towards figuring out what are going to be the best solutions for you. And so not to get discouraged if the first thing you try doesn't work, or if it takes some time, or if, as you said, Moses, some days you left a therapy session feeling worse than you had coming in. If you had given up at that point, you wouldn't have continued to make the progress that you made, right? But you stuck with it and you really made a commitment to it and worked with your counselor to kind of work through those difficult points to get to the other side of that. So I think the idea is that there are effective treatments that are available, that it may take some work, it will take some work on your part, and it may take some work working with your doctor, but really by continuing to have a dialogue and think about your work, your mental health treatment as a partnership, and being honest with yourself and being honest with your clinician about whether things are getting better or not, and what things seem to be helping and what things don't seem, what things are not as helpful, will help you continue to stay on a path towards getting better if you reach out for treatment.
So one of the biggest challenges that any human being has, right, is setting a resolution, deciding that they're going to be better at doing something, right? And a lot of times people pledge to go to the gym, and when they get motivated, they like overcommit, right? Like, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, and then Wednesday rolls around, they realize they haven't been to the gym once yet, and they just sort of give up, right? It's because they gave themselves too much they try to challenge themselves with too much. How can veterans or anybody real, and especially their family members that are trying to motivate, how can they set the bar low enough on what the first step is towards a good experience that will help them get past that barrier to entry and then realize, okay, a little bit is enough to be effective, and then want to do more? Yeah,
that's a great point and a great question. And I think the very first thing is by having an open conversation about it and continuing to have an open conversation about it, and by continuing to pay attention yourself to how things are going, and to look for those small steps and to take small steps. So just by letting a family member know that you don't think things are quite right, whether you're the family member that's concerned about a veteran or whether you're the veteran who's experiencing some difficulties, by even letting the person know that like something's not quite right here, that's making a change. And that's taking things in a more positive direction, and being honest about that. And then, maybe then the next step is to just learn some more. And identify or get for yourself some ideas about what might be going on or what things might be helpful, whether it's by talking to a friend or a colleague that has had similar challenges, or again, by continuing to talk with a loved one, reaching out to your doctor or counselor. And then also I go back to the idea that we talked about a little bit ago about building on strengths and identifying small steps. So even on those darkest days and those hardest days, what's one thing that you can do that you're going to feel good about, that you're either going to enjoy or that you're going to feel good that you got done? Focus on that one thing, get it done, and then you're more likely to be able to do it again tomorrow or do more tomorrow. And so thinking about the sort of small steps and focusing on what's something positive that I can draw on and build on.
So not to challenge that, to play it, but to speak from experience, what if all those things that you mentioned are things that I find less enjoyable because of the way that I feel? Does that make sense?
I think so.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot with that question, but it was one of the things that came to mind because I'll admit I've recently come out of a funk of late, and that was something that I struggled with. Was I knew, okay, I have these things that I enjoy doing, and I went and did a couple of them, and I just wasn't feeling it. You know, I almost felt detached from this activity because of the way that I was feeling. What's a way to address that?
So what I hear. Part of what I hear in that is that you noticed a change, something you used to enjoy, and that you weren't enjoying anymore. And it's that kind of change that would prompt that if you're paying attention to it, will make you say, okay, something isn't right here. Let me talk to my doctor about that. Let me talk to my spouse about that, and see what and let a loved one know what you're experiencing and if there's anything they can do to support you, but also, maybe that's the time to reach out to a counselor or a doctor when you're noticing that there's a change there.
I have learned to, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, on the way that you behave. I have learned that when if I feel depressed and I notice that it's affecting my mood and the way that I behave, I will tell my wife and I will tell someone at work, any one of my colleagues, and it's that way. Two people, so that way that's what 80% of my day, right? Being around my wife at home or being at work, and so that way all my bases are covered on people, at least someone knowing that there's something going on. Do you do that at all? Do you announce to anybody that you're feeling a little off? My wife, when I tell her, she says, "I know," right? Like so she already knows when I tell her, and I'm sure that your family has a similar reaction. But what's your approach to that?
I mean, it is that. I've had those days at the gym. The gym is my litmus test. Is how am I feeling? And there's days you're not going to have a good day at the gym every single day, but if I'm like, man, I just did not like this. I hated being here. I'm glad I showed up, but man, I didn't want to be here. Hey, how was the gym? And just being cognizant of that is a step forward in saying, all right, I got to make sure that I'm really being present today and really, paying attention to how I feel about things and asking yourself these questions like, am I having a down day or is something really off? And for the most part, it's usually just, not every day is a great one. But I definitely announce it because it doesn't really make up for behavior. It doesn't excuse behavior, but it says, hey, maybe I'm just not on my game today. It's just, if there's something dramatic, unless it's an emergency, let's just put it on hold. Let me figure this out. And being that open and vulnerable to your coworkers, to your family members, most of the time they're like, all right, cool. They'll work with you. It's not like they're going to drive a point home and push you further. If they care about you, they want you to be better. They want you to be okay. And also, their moods are affected by you. The mental health thing, not just for veterans, for everyone, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Your mood affects other people. And if you just snap at somebody for no good reason, that's going to mess up their day. And you don't want to be responsible for that either. So it really sets the tone that, maybe today is not the day, but it'll get better.
Yeah. Let's get on the other side then of treatment, right? We've learned about your service, your transition, seeking treatment, its effects. Now, what are the benefits of that? So many years later, what benefits are you still noticing from that original decision to seek support?
I get to normalize it to other veterans. The stigma, to society's credit, the conversation about mental health has gotten better to where, hey, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. That's not going to for the most part, it's not going to disqualify me from any jobs, but that stigma still exists, right? So there's veterans who will almost end in like, hey, just not feeling right. You know, whispering into me, like, it's all good, it's natural. Like the question is, are you going to do something about it? I'm in a really privileged position at California State University, San Marcos, to work with other veterans and normalize these things with the goal of, with the intent of helping them get better, helping them seek treatment. That's part of the whole person approach is you got to get your mental game on point. Because that, you know, if you played sports, right? 90% of it's mental. And that's your professional life, that's your family life. If your mental game is on point, it's going to negatively affect everything else. And you can only fake it for so long before you end up in a place you don't want to be. And I'm just in a really great position to really normalize, you know, this conversation and let them know that it's natural, it's okay, and then, you know, motivate them. The next step is go seek that help.
Yeah, and you said sports is mostly mental. I'll tell you, I'm getting to that age where it doesn't matter how hard I think about it.
Yeah, we're just old now.
Yeah, getting on the court's a little tougher.
And Moses, I have a follow-up question that you talked about how you're now in a position to normalize for other veterans and talk to them about what they're going through from a perspective of understanding because you've been through it. Do you also feel like there are other ways in your life where you're more present since seeking treatment and more that ways in which it's made a difference for you personally?
It's helped me just be present with my family. It helped me to be present with my son, understanding the basics of human development and not getting mad when he gets mad, not matching his moods. It's helped me be more present with my daughter and understanding that a little girl is vastly different than raising a little boy. It's helped me really navigate my family, and you know, it's helped me kind of be like a rising tide, where I get to bring people up around me, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy now, where it's something that I used to dread. I mean, there's always going to be that little issue, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I being a good parent? And am I being a good co-parent? But for the most part, I'm in this position to where I could really bring people up with me, and it's something that I'm so present for and so happy for, and that's really. And seeking treatment, the biggest thing that it allowed me to do was learn how to be present and learn how to really just enjoy moments. And I just started doing things that I liked doing, and I ended up being good at it. And luckily, there was a market for my services and things that I enjoyed doing, and eventually became a passion. Like, I'm living my passion every single day. And this isn't something that's unique to me. I feel like everyone can do that. And I don't think that's a cliche thing, but it's making sure you're honest with yourself, making sure that you are present with yourself in order to be like, all right, maybe I didn't like that, or maybe I really enjoyed this. Maybe it just means my passion is being a good parent, and now I get to be present with them and live every moment and be with them.
Yeah. So let's, as we begin to wrap this up, let's talk about then the approach to communicating to veterans that it's okay to seek support, and how we communicate to family members how to recommend that a veteran should be seeking support. And we'll start with you. And one thing that I've learned is that the number one way that I've learned that veterans will be open to all of this is by revealing that you've experienced it yourself, right? As soon as someone sees like my TED Talk or something like that, I get messages like, "Hey, I'm feeling this way. You know, what'd you do when you were in this situation?" And I've noticed that the thing that connects all of that is that they saw that I shared my story, so now they're willing to talk to me about theirs. So what do you talk to veterans in, either in your professional situation or even in your personal life? How do you communicate to veterans that it's okay to get support, it's okay to seek treatment?
It's pretty much that. I mean, at Cal State San Marcos, I'm in a privileged position where I talk to transitioning veterans every single day. And it's really saying, like, I have a pretty good idea what you're going through, and it's okay. And I'm telling you, from my position, it gets better as long as you're patient and go seek that treatment. You know, as long as you're open and vulnerable and willing to go seek that help, it gets better. The only way it doesn't get better is if you don't seek that treatment, you don't take that therapy seriously, or you don't engage in exercises that are meant for you to move forward in your life. So my position allows me to really, really meet them. And of course, being a veterans counselor, you know, in higher ed, it leads some credit to what I'm saying is true. And I enjoy it. I love doing it, and I take that position very seriously.
Sure. So Wendy, family members that are maybe dealing with a veteran that's very uncertain about getting treatment, they're intimidated themselves. How do we encourage family members to address that with that veteran?
Yeah. A couple of things. One is we've talked a little bit about just starting the conversation, just asking. So if you are concerned that you've noticed changes, if the veteran in your life is having symptoms, more irritable, withdrawing from friends or family, not doing things they used to enjoy or normally would do, ask them about it would be the first thing. And that can be intimidating. Those are hard conversations to have. And the first one might not go well, and the second one might not go well. And just like we were talking about earlier with sticking with treatment and making a commitment to that, really starting that conversation. And VA actually has a program called Coaching into Care to help families who, if are concerned about a veteran, there's a mental health, it's a telephone coaching program where a family member can call the Coaching into Care program. A mental health professional can talk to them about what they're concerned about, what steps they can take, how to have those conversations, and kind of give the family member support through helping initiate that process. So that's one thing that family members can do. And also really learning more yourself about what might be going on can help you go into those conversations with some idea of what you want to say and what you want to encourage the person to do. I think, the most important thing is also going into those conversations realizing that if you're struggling, there is help available, there's support available, there are effective treatments. So if you can get to that point, get sort of through that initial barrier of realizing that you might need some help and then taking the first step towards getting some help, then the things fall into place easier sort of once you get through those initial barriers.
Sure. So we're coming to the end of our hour soon. I want to make sure that we get everything out that we came in here to talk about. So Moses, Wendy, let's wrap up with either some final thoughts, something that you want to make sure we expand on, something you think we've missed. Wendy, we'll start with you.
Okay. One thing I want to say is thank you to both of you for talking about your experiences. It takes strength to ask for help, and it also takes strength to talk publicly about it. As you were talking about, Moses, it's still not something that our culture talks about much, but we have an opportunity really in May especially, but throughout the year with Mental Health Month to talk about it and to raise awareness and to help people realize that there are effective treatments available, that recovery is possible, that change is possible, and that anybody who's struggling isn't the only one that's had those experiences. And there are hundreds of veterans, for example, like Moses, and hundreds of others who have come forward through VA's Make the Connection program and shared their own personal stories of challenges they've faced, treatments they've received, what's been helpful for them, and what kinds of changes they've made in their lives. And they've done that really in hopes of encouraging other veterans to seek care. And so I hope that people will take advantage of this opportunity to have a conversation with someone about mental health, whether it's someone you're concerned about or just talking as a nation, we have an opportunity to change the way people respond to and change the way people view mental health conditions, mental health treatment. And I hope this conversation will help those additional conversations happen.
Absolutely. Mo?
Pretty much along the same lines. It gets better, right? Doing something is better than doing nothing. Doing a Google search is a better option than sitting on the couch doing nothing. Saying, hey, I need help is better than being quiet. Being open and vulnerable and saying, I do need help is a sign of strength. Trying to bottle up and work through it is oftentimes a recipe for just not good things. And that veterans don't have the market cornered on mental health issues. Mental health anything is a very human thing. And I think we should all really be open to these conversations, that not everybody is going to have, everybody is in a place, and be open and willing to have those conversations, to meet someone where they're at, to encourage them to get help, and let them know that you're not alone. People have been in it before. There's probably someone going through it right now, but it does get better as long as you're active in helping it make it get better.
Absolutely. Wendy, Moses, thank you so much for joining me and having this open discussion. Thank you to the audience at home for watching. You can subscribe to the Make the Connection YouTube channel to see more inspiring stories just like Moses. You can also follow Make the Connection on Facebook and Instagram to search Veterans MTC in either one of those platforms. And finally, check out what mental health means to other veterans by visiting maketheconnection.net/MHM. Thank you for joining us. Have a nice day.
Thank you.